Hello.
Hello, Andre. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Hi, Mecca.
Excellent. Thank you so much for talking with me today. I'm really excited to talk about your new book
Oh,
coming out, your new anthology.
thank you so much for interviewing me. You did it last time for Ripped Into, and here you are again. You're such a wonderful gem. I'm so
Ah,
excited to always be able to talk with you in real life or on Zoom. Okay.
yes. For those of everyone who doesn't know who Andre Diniz is, but I know everyone does already, Andre is one of my oldest and dearest friends, and he's also one of my greatest inspirations because he's constantly leveling up reality. He's writing and creating and learning new things and becoming more deeply spiritual and more deeply creative every day. Ladies and gentlemen, the writer of so many things, but right now, variations of Time and Nature about to come out. My dearest friend, Andre Diniz.
Ah, you're my dearest friend too, Mecca, and like you are always an inspiration to me too, and will forever be. In fact, we're working together. We can talk about that a little bit in the end, about what's next after Variations of Time, because it's
I
you
can't wait.
and me, right? Um,
Perfect.
but yeah, I'm excited to have this out. Um, I guess we should get right to it.
Totally.
The
Tell
so
us, tell us about what Variations of Time and Nature is.
So it is an anthology of poems and short stories. I had the idea for this, oh my gosh, like so long ago. And I talk about it in the afterword for it. But when I was writing Ripped Into, the main character of that paranormal drama novel that I released earlier this year, he is a writer and he releases Variations of Time and Nature. Uh, but it I but it wasn't until I think maybe the second or third draft of that novel that I had the idea to actually release um, his works, and then any future works that anybody talks about in any of the main novels of the Torn Skin universe, to release it, to actually have it. And so thank you, Elijah, for that character, for giving me that idea. But
So, who is Elijah? Elijah is from Ripped in Two,
yeah,
correct? Your
yeah,
last novel that just came out. Yes, so
yeah.
good.
Mhm.
And how does that sit in the Torn Skin universe? How does Elijah and his, as a poet,
So,
how does it all link?
like I was mentioning, like Ripped Into is a paranormal drama novel, came out in April, and it's the very first installment of the Torn Skin universe. And in that novel, there's two lead characters. They're Dana and Elijah, and they like go throughout together in the entire novel. But Elijah is a boy whose family is growing, he grows up in Boston in boarding school. He's very neglected by his parents, and he gets lost in the woods one time for a week, and then that changes his life. He meets Dana. He's a little boy when that happens, and then they kind of just stay in each other's path for the rest of their lives. And as he grows up, because he is also a psychic uh, child and grows up, and his gifts become more and more evolved, he becomes and he's an artist, and then becomes a writer, and so focuses his artistic sensibility to that. And he starts writing poems at first. This is all in the story of Ripped Into, and then eventually goes to Columbia University, releases a couple of novels. Like, so he becomes, that's what he does. And so, his relationships are a very complicated in the novel. And it's mainly too affected by the fact, I'm not giving anything away by this, is that in the novel Ripped Into, he has a spirit named Two that inhibits his body, shares his body with him, and then he channels that spirit in his writing. And so that means he kind of um, allows that spirit to speak through him, and to guide him on his projects, and to have a say of some sort on direction and so on and so forth. And sometimes at points in the novel, he even allows Tu to fully write whatever Tu wants through him, to the point where,
That's interesting.
yeah,
I feel like I feel, because I do know you, I feel like each one of your characters has different aspects of you written into the character
yeah,
just by nature.
mhm,
This character, Elijah, is very spiritual, psychic, and does channel directly from the spirit that's inside him in the book named Tu. But how did you get the inspiration for that? How did you um like channel this book or these writings? Like, tell us about that. I've known that about you your whole life. I've watched you channel writing. How did that come out? Like, and as a character, Elijah representing channeling and writing is something that you've done in your very own writing.
Well, I was always very intrigued by it. I mean, I think we spoke when we were releasing Written 2. I talked, I think, in our interview a lot about like my psychic abilities, and people might know I haven't, people might not know I haven't, but I feel like by now, if you know me, like you know about it because I'm very vocal about it. So one of the things that I've been able to do is something called channeling. So basically, you have your spiritual guides, which people in different cultures call them different things, but I call them guides. And um, so people use channeling in different ways and in different levels, and I can't fully speak about how they use it, but I can only speak how I use it, right? So
Absolutely.
you can always Google it, but like the way I do it is that before I sit down to write, I feel like I connect to I take the time, whatever time that is, could be 10 minutes, could be an hour. Sometimes it is that long, where I
Mhm.
have to have everything like shut down. I have to have like some candlelight. The room needs to be a little bit darker, and I need to like sit there, sometimes even under a blanket, until I feel like I've shut out everything, and then I feel like I have some connection to my protectors, like the guides that are around me. And then the way it works for me is that I actually start to see images of what the characters are doing. I literally, like, if I, speaking, like, even in one of the short stories in this anthology, for example, the very last one, which is called Cambio, it's one of my favorites, which is why it closes up the anthology. I literally was in my bedroom and I had kind of a vague idea of where I wanted that story to go toward. And then I just saw a woman in a red dress standing by a window. And this is like something I'm seeing like in my mind, right? And it was raining. And she looks back, and I heard in my mind someone say, "Shut the window," like scream at her. And when you read that story, you will see that like just goes through the whole story. And so I start with an image, and then I start asking questions to the image. But where are you going? So I asked the woman in the vision. I was like, "Show me where you're at." And so she walked and like literally introduced me to the whole environment. And then I found out she was in a hotel. I found out that she was in the past. I found out that an accident had happened. And then I found out that her new, uh, this was a past life version of herself, and that her new self needed to come meet her so they could fix something, a problem that occurred, which had to do with a window not being shut and someone sneaking into the house and killing someone. So from there, I just kind of go. But I just, people can call that process whatever they like, but for me, it's kind of how it works. Sometimes it's even deeper than that. Sometimes
Right.
it goes all sorts of ways, but I just kind of allow my mind to open up to download this. I call it kind of like a download. It feels like a
Oh,
download.
that's such spiritual terminology. But as a spiritualist myself, spiritual life coach and psychic myself, that everybody also knows about because it's actually a huge part of my career, musically and otherwise. Uh, it is called a download. Like that is official lingo. It does. It feels like a download.
It really is. I mean, all these there's 4 short stories in this anthology, and then a number of poems. all the four short stories are mentioned by Elijah in Ripped in Two at some point. But this specific short story that deals with what I just described is mentioned very vaguely in the novel. It's not as specific as the other one. So I kind of was like, well, how do I make this happen? What is this? So I think I think for me it has always helped. I mean, my characters are very spiritual. They don't talk about religion, even though some of them are religious. I just kind of leave that out of it, and I allow their behavior to kind of show their beliefs.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I can't really write about people's spirituality dependent on whatever background the characters have, unless
Right.
I connect to spirit, to
Right.
it's the only way that for me I can put that into the writing. So
Beautifully well said. It's fascinating and really um, incredible how you weave all of these stories together. I'm madly in love with the Torn Skin universe already. Um, I also really love your female lead characters.
yeah.
You know, I do feel a connection with a lot of them and I get excited for them. Obviously, I'm in love with Dana, but it's complex because she has somebody else inside of her, another spirit. But all these different characters, even coming in your short stories now. But tell us a little bit about your female characters.
There's two things that I think since I was an itty bitty person and I was trying to already like dabble into poetry and like started writing short stories, I've always cared about two types of characters: women characters, female characters, and also gay characters. I think now we're in a different time than we used to be when I was a teenager. So back then, that was like a huge deal for me because I felt uh, a lot of times female characters and gay characters weren't really depicted. They were kind of like they were kind of flat, like
Yeah.
not multifaceted, and sometimes were just kind of there to serve like the male protagonists or something. I don't know.
Well said.
No,
Absolutely.
but most of the time I felt that way. So then I just always make sure that I really, whenever I feel like I developed them enough, I stop and develop it further because I just
Wow.
want to make sure that they are like, that I know everything I can in order to write about them. So uh, I wrote this anthology through Elijah's voice, right? So he releases it. Of course, it's me doing it, but
Right.
I
Of
also,
course.
my acting background allowed me to kind of like incorporate Elijah and like really like, I imagine what if I had to act, eh, what if I had to be him, like if I was acting him in a play or whatever. So I allowed his persona to come through me before I was writing everything as well. Um, and knowing Elijah's psyche and like and the people who influenced him in his life, they were really women. I mean, he had great relationships with women. I mean, um, and then his male figures in his life weren't as strong or predominant. So it only made sense to me that if we were going to have examples of Elijah's writing in short stories, that women would be like either the protagonist or highly influencing the outcome of the story, right? So in the very first one, Glimpses of the Forest, you have these two women uh, battling for love and um, creating, trying to deal with jealousy and like how to maneuver art and work together. And so it's just that story is actually, parts of it are in Ripped in Two, like you see examples of that. But it's a very spiritual story because they're very connected to nature. Uh, and the anthology is divided into four sections: Winds of the Past, Waters of Today, Fires of Tomorrow, and Earth Ever Changing. So that one is in Winds of the Past. So it's talking about the past and how, their souls are connected to the forest themselves. And so in the Waters of Today, that story is called The Lake. And the main character in it is a male, but in the entire story, the women, his mother, a woman he meets at a lake, it's a very mysterious woman, and then literally all the women in his life inform him about how guide him in some sort of way on how he can be a better person than he is.
Wow.
It's his interactions with them really is what drives him to become a better writer in that story, because that character is also a writer, and I don't know, and how to be deeper, because he's just not, until he crosses paths with all these important female figures in his life. And then a story that actually you gave me feedback on, Visions from a Smoking Flame,
Oh,
that
I love that story.
in the Fires of Tomorrow section. So it's about a psychic, a woman who kind of fails to see um, the lurking danger toward herself. You know, she can see it for other people, but has a difficult time, like, kind of dismisses it when it comes to her. But she drives that story I mean, she's the lead of it, and her passion for Celine, she loves Celine Dion in the story. She lives in Vegas, and so she has. I really wanted her in that short story to be a very real person. You know, to me, I feel like psychics, for example, they're not, sometimes they're very viewed as like a specific kind of person, like very like occult, like he's, I don't know, just kind of, you know what I'm trying to say, right? And it's
Totally.
like there's all types of people who
It's all types of psychics, yeah.
have gifts in different ways and behave in all kinds of manners. There's no um, way of dressing or behaving or acting and when you're a psychic. And so I wanted her to kind of be very specific in the story about who she was and how she dresses and how she goes about her life and deals with the universe and deals with being a psychic, but in an actual and living off of it and having it be a business in a city like Las Vegas. And so um, how smart she is and how powerful she is to grab everything in her hands is like what I wanted to convey in that story, but you know, through Elijah. And then the last one, Cambio, that I mentioned, you know, the lead character has to like look back at a past life version of herself and figure out how to. She realizes that her behavior in her current life is being affected by the past. You know, she can't commit to anything. She's not committal. She's always late to everything. She just is wishy-washy, wastes a lot of time, is always confused about what's next, and so she realizes by meeting a past version of herself where it went wrong and why she's behaving the way she is, and then the two of them have to come together to fix it. And so, you know, it's always been important to me that to write original stories that like show different sides of the many women I also have met. I mean, everything I write is, a lot of it is based off of people I know, things that happened to me. You know, I can get images from the guides and see points and plot points, but then in the end, like the meat of it, as it starts to get written, obviously is coming from me. Uh, and I always base it on grounded things that I witnessed or things people I know or so on and so forth. So
Heck
yeah.
yeah. Well, I love that. I mean, you know, before we get going, because I do want to hint at what's to come,
Yeah.
because you know, there's things in the works in a lot of different ways, because you're talking about being an actor. But let's stop here for a moment and just talk about, like, when is the anthology out? How can people get it?
So it is out very soon, October 14th. It might be even out a day early, who knows? But it is out on Amazon, and I'll definitely be posting about that. And
Awesome.
um, It comes out, I think you can get a paperback in 7 different countries, and I think an ebook is available in 12 different
Wow.
Amazon. Uh,
So international. I love that.
yeah, it's so, I mean, it's so great that we have this ability to do this now where it can just be available everywhere, you know? Yeah.
Totally. Now, what's your website address too, so people can investigate you further?
AndreDiniz, artist.com. And
Amazing.
all the information is there too. And yeah, it's great. And then you and I are working, you know, if you don't, so we're working on the next installment of the Torn Skin universe. So the Torn Skin universe is a collection of novels, stage plays, albums, and short stories, poems, many things, and they are all set in the same universe. But the
Wow.
very next thing that's coming out in the spring of next year is called Binary Stars, which is a stage play, which has an album attached to that. All the information about that's on my website too. But Meka is the personification of Meka is actually a character in the story, and also her music is talked about a lot in the stage play. And we are actually going to be creating an album where all the songs that are talked about are actually exist. And so it's all going to be original music. And I'm very excited to, as soon as it gets released or start going with you, we've been wanting to do a project for a very, very long, long time. So
Amazing.
yeah. And so
I'm
it's,
so excited.
I mean, we both inspire each other a lot. So I just can't wait for that to
It's
happen.
Yes, it's funny that even a picture came up today from the memories that you had taken of me performing in New York one time. And I love that we get to spend time in New York. And I know that the Binary Stars is based kind of in New York, a lot of it as well. So I'm excited to discover the soundtrack to your story. Like I love helping discover that. I know you are a great singer and songwriter yourself, like as in some of the past plays like The Beginning of Life and stuff that I got to help participate in before as well. But I am so excited about working on Binary Stars with you and being a part of the Torn Skin universe.
Oh my God.
um,
Yeah.
so
You're really like the only person so far that I'm actually including as a character into this universe. I don't know if that will happen to anyone else that I know, but
Ms.
I
Meka
know
Nism.
you both as your professional artist persona and as a person outside of that. And I
Yeah,
know how the two merge and sometimes are, you know, veer apart and come back together. So I know all that facet of that. So for me, it's always been very interesting and great to see because we've known each other for so long.
totally.
The
And now
beginning.
we get to play in another dimension. Yeah.
You've been there, so why not, right?
Amazing. Well,
Yeah.
it's been amazing just growing with you and reading your works and seeing your plays in different stages, off Broadway or otherwise. Seeing you perform is amazing. Reading your writing is amazing. Seeing how all of your different talents come together to express this whole universe, this Torn Skin universe. But I hope that everybody has already received Ripped in Two, and now they get to use this companion anthology to further enhance their experience with the Torn Skin universe.
Yeah.
I'm already in love with everything I've read from it. I can't wait to read more.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention something too. You can have read Ripped in Two or not, and either way
Okay.
it doesn't change your ability to enjoy variations of time and nature. My hope is also that if you have not read Ripped in Two and you decide to read this anthology first, that when you do finish the anthology, it will spark the interest of you reading Ripped in Two to see what that's about. But either way, you can get them, you know, you can read them
Well
in it.
said.
Yeah.
Because I was like, people can jump into this universe like another dimension at any point and then weave back around because they're all interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
There's not like where they have to go book one, book two, book three before. It
Yeah.
is a web that people can jump into on any book and then discover more. That
Yeah,
is another element that I love about this.
definitely like a central part, and then as we go out of it, you can literally choose to kind of go in any direction first, and every time you choose a point, and even the order in which you choose it will kind of like, I've always believed, like, when I think maybe this is the last thing I can mention before we go, but I've always believed that, like, reading books for me and experience art happens when it's supposed to happen. Anytime I've had, like, I'm always experiencing it, but anytime I've, like, ugh, I don't want to do it and force myself to do it, sometimes I go, maybe it wasn't the right time. And I've definitely had experiences when I watched a movie and I was like, I didn't like it. And then years later, I'll watch it and I'm like, my God, it's amazing. I don't know what I was thinking, why I didn't like it before. I think the timing in
Yeah.
which you experience things is very important. So for me, I wanted to write a universe where they're clearly all connected and you can choose to start at the starting point of the first thing that was released and go chronologically. But also, I wanted to do it in a way where you can choose to go in any direction first, and that will inform your own personal journey
Wow.
of how you choose to be affected and so on and so forth. So it will be different for I hope for everyone eventually, dependent on how they choose, what direction they choose to go. So
Amazing. It really is special, Andre. Thank you for talking to me about it. I love sharing this journey with you. I hope everyone gets an opportunity to read Variations of Time and Nature, available on Amazon October 14th. And everyone go check out an Andre Diniz artist website as well, because there is a lot of information there just to get to know him and his journey and to further follow the Torn Skin universe. Thank you so much. I can't wait to talk to you more.
yeah, thank you,
Many
everyone.
blessings for a great evening. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Bye, Mecca.
Bye, Andre.